Welcome to the Pocket. My name is Scooter, here to present to you my Week 9 preview of the Giants-Commanders game. The Commanders are 6-2, and they will be traveling to the Giants, who are 2-6. Today's video, we're going to cover injuries, team records, key matchups, the Vegas breakdown, and then my pick for this week's game. Now, before we get into it, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to support the channel. It really helps a lot, and it means a lot to me. So let's get right into it. So starting off with the team records, the Commanders so far have beaten the Giants as their first win. And then they went on to beat the Bengals in a very exciting primetime game, sort of the breakout game for the Commanders, as we all knew that, they had a good chance to beat the Giants. And then they went on to blow out the Cardinals and then beat the Browns pretty handily, blew out the Panthers with Marcus Mariota for the majority of the game, but the Panthers aren't that good. And then they beat the Bears on a Hail Mary. So looking at this schedule, I see the Bengals win as the most impressive win. I really know that they haven't been all that this year, and they've been very disappointing, but they are probably the most talented team that they have beaten. I would say the Cardinals are pretty good, and so are the Bears. Those teams are probably in the same tier of like NFC wild card contenders. So they've beaten some pretty solid teams. And then on top of that, they've gotten it done against teams that they should get wins against, such as the Browns, the Panthers, and the Giants. So that's who they've beaten. They've lost to the Buccaneers, the fully healthy Buccaneers team week 1. That team was very, very good, and they still are quite good, but without Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, they're just not the same. And then they lost to the Ravens, who, of course, are a top 3-1 team in the league. So really not going to hold that against them too much. The Ravens were up 2 scores at one point. The Commanders did narrow that down to, I believe it was like a 7-point or 10-point deficit by the end of the game. Moving on to the Giants. The Giants beat the Browns and the Seahawks. So we've beaten one of the same teams that they've beaten, but they didn't get a chance to play the Seahawks yet, but we did beat them. That was without Malik Nabers, probably the most impressive win we're going to have all year, unless things change drastically. And then the Giants lost to the Vikings, of course, the Commanders, the Cowboys, the Bengals, the Eagles, and the Steelers. Now, what I will say is the Bengals did beat the Bears, Cardinals, and the Bengals, who are sort of like a playoff contending team. I see the Steelers, the Eagles, and the Cowboys as sort of playoff contending teams, except I would say the Eagles and the Steelers are like kind of like, you expect them to make the playoffs. The Bengals, of course, we lost them, but we saw the game was close, sort of like the Commanders game with the Bengals. So I feel like, when you compare the records, I think we definitely have had a harder schedule so far. But in the end of the day, obviously, they've far outperformed the Giants. You can just tell from the eye test, seeing it on the field, that they're a more complete football team as of now, considering how explosive their offense is and their defense has shown up in a game or two this year. Now, good thing about this is the Commanders and the Giants have played already. So this makes my job a lot easier. Now, the way I look at games like this, where it's interdivision and it's the second time these two teams are playing, is there are 2 variables that are changing. You have injuries, right? Who's going to be playing in this game that wasn't playing in the last time that they played? And whose stadium are we in this time? Who's really got the advantage? So this makes my job a lot easier. When they played in week 2, the Giants lost 21-18 on the combination of bad run defense, having no kicker, and a drop from Malik Nabers that would have iced the game, along with a few other missed offensive opportunities, such as 2-point conversions. Now, we're going to move on to the injuries. Here's who each team will be missing since that game. The Giants will be missing Andrew Thomas. That's probably the biggest loss of any injury, based off of who's missing from the last game. Obviously, the Giants' offensive line, not just this year, but in years past, whenever they lose Andrew Thomas, they're a completely different unit. And we've seen that so far. Now, next is Kayvon Thibodeau. He's our pass rusher, our second pass rusher. We all know the story about him, how he's kind of had a slower start to his career, but he was really starting to get going this year. But he's on the IR because he had surgery on his wrist. Now, we do have Azeez Ojulari, who's been filling in for Kayvon Thibodeau, a former second-round pick. And I kind of noted when we first lost Kayvon that, yeah, it sucks, but we do have a quality backup pass rusher, and that's why you have the depth. And if anything, Aziz might even be a little bit of a better fit in this game to sack a quarterback like Jaden Daniels, who is so fast and elusive. Aziz just a little more, quick and fast than Kayvon is. So maybe he could chase down Jaden Daniels a little bit better. Of course, the Giants are still missing their punter, Jamie Gillian, and wide receiver Bryce Ford Wheaton, who returned that blocked field goal for a touchdown in the Seahawks game. So, I guess a little hit to the special teams. And I believe the kicker is actually injured as well. So we're going to have to make sure the special teams are dialed up and that we got the right guys in there, so we don't have a repeat of last time. Now, for the Commanders, Cornelius Lucas is a swing tackle for them. He is out, so they're going to be down a little bit of offensive line depth. Javante John Baptiste, one of their edge players, is on IR. And Jonathan Allen, their interior pass rusher and defensive tackle, is also on IR. So they won't be having two starting defensive linemen. I believe John Baptiste is a starter. If he's not, then he's probably more of a rotational guy. But nonetheless, it's still a hit to that defensive line of theirs. Now, Brian Robinson is also questionable, but I believe he is going to play. He's a menace. He got shot. He's going to be able to play in this football game, I believe. Just wanted to mention that he was questionable. So those are the injuries. Those are the guys who are they're going to. Each team is going to be missing going into this game. And now we're going to break down sort of the statistical and performance breakdown of the last game. So when Daniel Jones played against the Commanders, he had sort of a whatever performance. I really think it could have been a lot better. He was 16 for 28, 178 passing yards. That's too low, but he did have 2 passing touchdowns, so that was pretty good. For the run game, Singletary had a good game on the ground. And the Giants, pass catchers, we only had 3 players outside of Singletary's 1 catch for like 0 yards, catch passes. It was Malik Neighbors, Wandale, and Slayton. No tight end usage whatsoever. So I really like that, the change. But a big part of that was probably because Malik did have 18 targets. He caught 10 of them for 127 yards and a touchdown. Man, I wish he caught that last one. But so that's the breakdown of the passing game and the weapons. Now, for the offensive line, the Giants only allowed 1 sack. And we obviously produced a good run game with Singletary, so they played quite well. And now the Commanders are missing a couple guys, but we're missing Andrew Thomas. So I'm pretty interested to see what the difference is. I think us losing Andrew Thomas is a bigger deal. But at the same time, I know they still have Dan Quinn as their coach, defensive coach, who's seemed to have had Daniel Jones's number in the past few seasons that he was, say, coaching for Dallas and things like that. But like I said, really interested to see the result of that. Now, like the key stats, like the team stats, the Giants had 1 fumble. We only punted 2 times. Only 22 minutes and 28 seconds time of possession. That is not good enough. We did have 18 first downs, which isn't bad. We were 4 for 8 on 3rd down, 1 for 2 on 4th down, and we only had 51 plays, which is much less than what they had. So overall, the offense still really missed opportunities to win this game, whether it was the drop, whether it was not being able to kick field goals. Realizing that and not being able to get 2-point conversions, there was plenty of opportunities that we could have had to win. And we easily could have scored 4 touchdowns, in my opinion, right? That fumble, that drive, it was looking pretty good. But, you turn the ball over, and obviously you can't score if you do that. But we got 18 points in the end of the day. We tried 2-point conversions and didn't get them. So that was probably the biggest reason that we lost. Moving on to the defense. Defense had an odd game. The pros were we allowed 0 touchdowns. We got 5 sacks, which is pretty good. And we only allowed 21 points, which, in your average NFL game isn't too bad. But the cons, 7 field goals, right? So you can't stop them from getting past, say, your own 40. 215 rushing yards allowed. That's obviously terrible, and that's a big reason why they had 37 minutes and 32 seconds time of possession. We only had them in 1 4th down situation, but they did convert. They had 425 total yards on offense. They were 7 for 14 on 3rd down. They had 0 turnovers and a 79 completion percentage. Now, I know they were throwing like a lot of screens and short passes and things of that nature, but the bottom line is that was an extension of the run game in their eyes, and that's a big reason why they possessed the ball so long. And as I said, that's probably the biggest reason that they won this game. So special teams for the Giants, I really don't have any comments on this. I mean, we had no kicker for pretty much the entire game. I don't really know what you're supposed to, do about that or take away from that. But I guess if you consider 2-point conversions sort of part of special teams, then yeah, we got to be better at that in case we got to do it in this game. So moving on to the Vegas projection, they have Washington winning 24-20 with a 44-point total and Washington -4. To me, that sounds about right. I mean, the Giants were really close last time, but they fell short due to the kicker thing and missing a few opportunities on both sides. But I see this playing out quite similarly. Now, if there's a reason that the Commanders really beat the Giants, it's going to be the second variable I spoke about, because I'm also going to backtrack a little bit to the injuries and how I think that affects this game. I think more or less everything sort of like not cancels out, but like I said, we don't have Andrew Thomas, but they don't have Jonathan Allen or John Baptiste. It's kind of you know not great that we don't have Kayvon, but we do have Aziz. So it's like, we've been able to replace that production that we got from Kayvon. And those are like sort of the big injuries. Yeah, I know the Giants have some special teams injuries, but yeah, I mean, it's all happened before the game this time. So they got to figure it out and make sure they have the kicker signed and everything they need to do to make sure we can perform every special teams operation. So I'm not going to, point that out as like a, injury or players that we're going to be missing. But circling back to, the other variable is that it is at Giants Stadium. So if this correlates to what we've been seeing this year and what I've been expecting, is that this game will probably be worse for the Giants in some way, shape, or form. However, I don't want to put too much stock into that. But I guess I'm going to stick pretty close to the prediction of Vegas, and I'm going to pick the Commanders to win 23-20, just so I can take the under and Giants spread. Because, whenever you're looking at a 4-point spread, any opportunity that a team has to win by a field goal, they're going to take it and it's going to screw you, right? So I don't really like those 4-point spreads unless if you truly believe the team is going to win by a touchdown. Anything between 4 or really anything between 3.5 and 6.5, you're hoping for a touchdown either way. So it's one of those spreads that is a little tricky to work around, but in the end of the day, that is my take. Thank you all for watching. As I said in the beginning, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to give me your thoughts and support the channel. And that'll be all for today. Sorry for the late video. I'm doing my best to get these out. And that's all. Thanks for watching. Peace out.